Hey friends, this is Karen from Blue Rooster Farm, and today we are in the kitchen getting ready to can up some of our wonderful sour cherries. We have a bumper crop this year, and I've got a good recipe for you for cherry pie filling that we are going to preserve. Stick around and I'll show you how it's done. I've got everything laid out, and now I'm going to walk you through how we do this. First of all, last night I pitted my cherries, and I think I picked 15 pounds of sour cherries just last night. And so I've got lots in the refrigerator still that I'm going to be doing some other food preservation with, and making some other foods and stuff that we can enjoy. But today and right now we're working on the cherry pie filling. And so I just got enough prepared for our cherry pie filling. Now the recipe that I'm using is USDA approved. It is actually from the National Center for Home Food Preservation, and it is for 7 quarts of cherry pie filling. And they have on their website, they have a great resource where you have all sorts of recipes and all sorts of canning information that you can go to, and it's all free. So this one we're going to be using too. And it says that I'm going to need to have 9 1/3 cups of water. Well, my cherries have a lot of juice, and so I'm going to incorporate that juice into my pie filling because I don't want to waste that good flavor. As I was getting ready to strain the cherries, it suddenly dawned on me that I didn't have all my cherries there in front of me. I had another large bowl off to the side that was also to go with this recipe. Remember, this recipe is supposed to be for 7 quarts of cherry pie filling. And in order to make 7 quarts of cherry pie filling, we need 6 quarts of cherries. So I strained those cherries and the ones I had in front of me, and we got 2 cups of juice. Now for this recipe, it calls for 9 1/3 cups of water. And water's fine for your filling, but the juice makes it all that much better. I know that when I do my apple pie filling, I usually use apple juice, or at least part of the liquid is apple juice, so that my apple pie filling has a much better flavor. But if all you had was water, that would be fine. Liquid. So I need 9 1/3 cups of liquid altogether. So I've got 2 here, and that means I need 7 1/3 additional water. So I'll go get some of that. And then here is the additional 7 1/3 cups of water. So altogether, you should have 9 1/3 cups of liquid. Okay. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our sugar, and this recipe says you need 7 cups of sugar, and we're going to add our clear gel. Now we're going to need 1 3/4 cup of clear gel. If you don't know what clear gel is, it's very similar to cornstarch, and it is recommended for canning. Cornstarch and flour are not recommended. They don't hold up their consistency very well in long-term storage. but clear gel works really good. Now there is an instant clear gel and then there's the cooked clear gel. You need the cooked clear gel. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take 1 3/4 cups of the clear gel and we're going to add it to our 7 cups of sugar. And the reason we do that is because we don't want our clear gel to lump up in our liquid when we pour it in. And that's what it would do if we just added it directly to the water. It wouldn't blend in as easily. So this is a 1/2 cup measuring cup, and that was a cup. This is a 1.5 cups. And I'm just going to eyeball the others. And that's a 1 3/4 cups. Now we're going to put the lid back on this. And we're going to try to blend that sugar with the clear gel without getting it all over the counter. Make sure you can see there. We're just mixing it in. Just get it incorporated so when you add it to the liquid, it will stir and dissolve right in. And you'll see cornstarch added to sugar in a lot of different recipes, puddings and things like that. So that's the same thing that we're doing here with the clear gel, just to help it blend in better. I'm not doing too bad. Getting a little dusty, but all right. So then we got our mixture together. We are going to pour that into our pot. And you want to have a very large pot because 7 quart-size jars of cherry pie filling is a lot of pie filling. So you need to have a big stock pot. If you have one with a heavy bottom, that is really great. And that just keeps it from scorching as easily. I don't have one big enough that has the thick bottom, but I will be just standing over it and stirring it and watching it carefully. So we mix this together nicely, and just by mixing that sugar and clear gel together, I can tell that I have incorporated that very nicely. I just see maybe, do I see any lumps? Nope, I don't see any lumps. I thought I saw one, but it just dissolved. So we basically have got a Pepto-Bismol looking mixture right there. It is pretty though. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this over to the stovetop, and we are going to put it on medium-high heat as long as we're standing there stirring. And we are going to cook it until it becomes translucent and thick. And that will take several minutes, especially if you have a large pot like this. That takes a while to heat all of that up. And while we're doing that, we're also going to be heating our cherries. Now, this is what I do. I don't know if it's right, but it works for me. They want you to blanch your cherries. And that means put them in boiling water, let them heat for 1 minute in the boiling water, and then remove them. But my problem with that is it's going to take out all that wonderful juice that's in those cherries, and I don't want to do that. So what I have found, and again, this is not by USDA standards, so you do this at your own risk. I have found that if I take those cherries and I heat them up in the microwave, where I'm not worried about them scorching on the bottom, and I stir them and heat them, and I get them really, really hot all the way through and hold that temperature for at least a minute, I then have hot cherries, and there's going to be the juice in there too that will help flavor our pie filling. So again, I know that what they're doing is they're blanching the fruit to get it hot. also to kill off any bacteria. But I'm doing the same thing, only I am just putting it in the microwave, and I'm making sure that it is hot and it is boiling. Now you could probably do this on your stove too. And I think one of the reasons that they don't do that is because it can kind of mess up your berries and it makes them look not as nice. I'm not concerned about the way my berries look. I'm concerned about the taste of my cherry pie filling. So again, do that at your own risk. Otherwise, just boil some water, take about half of the cherries at a time, drop them into the boiling water, let the water come back to a boil, then heat for 1 minute, then strain the cherries out, put them in a bowl, and keep them hot. Okay, that's fine. You can do that. But this is the way I've done it. All right, so let's get this on the stove and let's get this cooking. I just wanted to bring you back for a second to show you what's going on. I am stirring the mixture. It is starting to get a little bit hot. It's a little bit of smoke, steam coming off of it. I prefer to use a metal spatula to keep the bottom of it clean. If I use a spoon, it doesn't get the whole bottom clean as I go across it. I just go across it gently. And that way, any of that, you can see the gel forming right there on the tip. Any of that that's stuck to the bottom won't burn. It'll just lift off and we can keep it from scorching. So I'm just going to be doing this consistently right now since it's getting hot. Also, while this was coming up to heat, I took my steam canner and I filled it with water up to this tray. And I've got it on and it is coming up to temperature as far as the water's getting hot, because this is going to be a hot canning process. I'm going to be filling the jars with a hot food, so I need my water in my water bath or my steam bath to be hot as well. We always have the same temperature. If I were canning this cold, I would start off with a cold water bath or a cold steamer. So it looks like we're getting a little bit thicker here. I'll bring you back when it gets a little closer. Okay, you can see that the consistency is beginning to get thick, quite thick, and it's almost translucent. There's a little bit of cloudiness still to it. Of course, it's going to stay pink, but we are just about at the stage where it's going to start boiling. And again, keep scraping that bottom so nothing scorches. Now, at this stage, we are going to add 1/2 cup of bottled lemon juice. Now, you have to use bottled because the acidity is at the right level. If you use fresh squeezed, the acidity may not be high enough and it would not be good for canning. So bottled lemon juice, 1/2 cup. And at this point too, if you wanted to add food coloring, you could. But right now, boy, this is a pretty pink, so I don't think I'm going to use any food coloring. Now, I have used food coloring in years past because we had to pick our berries before they were at the optimal redness, because we didn't have that many and the birds would get them if we waited any longer. And so they were a little bit, they weren't quite as red as these berries, I guess. They were still good, but just not quite as red. So this looks like it's just about ready to boil. Once it boils, we're going to boil for 1 minute. There it goes. So I'm going to set my timer for 1 minute. And I'm going to keep stirring. Now I've been heating my cherries and I got them all heated. And they boiled for 1 minute in the microwave. I divided it up into 2 batches so that they had plenty of space and that they all were able to heat consistently. I took it out, stirred it, put it back in. I am very sure that I have cooked them enough. I'm sure I probably cooked them longer than necessary, but I did get them to the right point. Now, I don't know if I told you how many cherries that we had. We had 6 quarts of cherries that we are putting in this. So let me get... Okay, so there's our minute. So I'm turning this off. That's good. Okay, so we have let it boil for 1 minute. We've added our lemon juice. I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of almond flavoring. 1, 2. If you want to add cinnamon at this point, you are perfectly capable of doing that now. If you wanted to add red food coloring, you could do that. This looks really pretty. Okay, now I'm going to get this on about a medium high, and I'm going to add the cherries. And according to the USDA recipe, you don't have to continue cooking. Once you get this thickened, you just add your hot cherries and then go ahead and can. But I'm going to go ahead, because I noticed when I heated my cherries, they have some juice that came out, and I want to get that thickened up in here too. So I'm going to go ahead and add my hot cherries, and then also just let it cook for about another minute, or at least maybe come to a boil. We'll see if we can get it to boil. And remember, we're using 6 quarts of pitted cherries. Had to make sure my microphone's still on. So lots of cherries are going in. And this is why you needed a big pot. Okay, and those were hot, so this should boil right up. Get it nicely mixed. Now, when cherries are picked and pitted, they're kind of like peaches. They quickly start turning a brown color, and you can stop that by adding absorbic acid. Lemon juice or citric acid can help a little bit, but it will not do what absorbic acid does. And so when you've pitted, and I did these last night, and they were a little brown, but they'll plumpen up, and they'll be really pretty once we get it made. But you might notice the browning of the cherries at first. So let's just see if we can get this to bubble, and we'll just make sure it's really hot all the way through, and then we'll put them in the jars and we'll can them up. And I'll bring you back once I've got everything moved over to the counter. My hot cherry pie filling is right here, and it is right off the stove. We want to get this into jars while it's still hot. And you need a ladle, and you need a jar funnel. And we are going to fill these jars up to about 1 inch away from the lip of the jar. And what I have found when I do pie filling, it is one that really wants to try to seep out of the jar. And so I actually go a little more than an inch, because it can expand a little more too with the clear gel. So I usually go to the shoulders, and I'll show you how far I go whenever I put some in a jar. So just a little bit under that bottom ring, here's where an inch is. I go a little bit farther. That way I have less siphoning. Because if it siphons, you have a risk of your jar not sealing, because that pie filling is pretty thick and it will get between the glass rim and your lid, and that will cause it not to seal. So we're going to fill these up real quickly. I may have a little extra because I did pit a little bit extra cherries, and I am leaving a little bit more space at the top. It looks like I've come out with 8 jars of the cherry pie filling. And that's probably because I measured my cherries after they were pitted, and they were pretty much, collapsed then. And so that would make a difference. And also, I did not blanch my fruit and drain it. I heated my fruit to the point that it needed to be heated and kept the juice. So all that juice that came out of that went into this. So it's a little juicier too, probably. So we've got 8 quarts of pie filling, but I'm not going to can all of them. I'm going to keep one back because I'm going to do another video showing what you can do with this pie filling besides making a cherry pie. But let me get these ready for the canner. My canner will hold 7 quarts. So let me wipe off the rims. I've got some vinegar right here. And I need to make sure the rims of my jars are perfectly clean. If there's anything on there, it may keep the jar from sealing. So I've got to make sure. And this one right here looks like it's a little bit fuller than I like. So I'm going to transfer some there. Transfer some there. Same with this one. Just eyeballing to see where they're at. Okay, so let me get all of these all clean with the vinegar. The vinegar cuts the sugar. And also if you were doing anything greasy, it would cut the grease. But it cleans it really nicely. You can also use water, but I don't think it cleans as well. It takes a little more effort on your part to get the rims clean. So that. And remember, you want those rims really clean. And as you're doing this, when your finger's going around the jar, if you feel a bump or a nick, you need to set that jar aside. That's not going to be a good canning jar. It will not seal. So check for those flaws. All right, they're all clean. Now we just need to put the lids on. And you don't need to sterilize your jars or your lids because we are going to be canning this, and it will sterilize in the canner. Make sure I only have one lid. That felt like two. All right, they all have one. Put your bands on them, and as I always say, make sure your bands are in good shape. If they're bent, they may not apply the pressure needed to the rim to seal your jar. Fingertip tight. I don't get in there with my thumb and wrench down. I just use the strength of my fingers. I'm going to set this on my canner, and I'm going to can once it comes up to temperature for my area. I need to do 30 minutes. I need to do 30 minutes for my area, but I have to get the temperature on my steam canner and then start timing. Now, if you're using a water bath canner, once you get your jars in, let it come back to a boil. Once it's at a rapid boil, you can turn it down so it's just bubbling and start timing for 30 minutes after it comes to the boil. It needs to continue boiling the whole time. If it stops boiling, it's not processing correctly. It needs to be boiling at a nice little ripple the whole time. Also, you can add a tablespoon or so of vinegar to your canning water to keep the jars clean. You need to have on your water canner an inch above the jars. You don't want the lids outside of the water. They need to be an inch below water. On the steamer, of course, there's no water. The steam is the hot thing, and that's what's inside there. And so that's what I love about that. You don't have to waste all that water. So I'm going to get these over there, and then I'll start timing after it comes to temp. Okay, they all fit nicely. Make sure it's on securely. Then I'm going to watch right here, and when this outer rim, my elevation is this outer light blue rim. When the red dial gets to the green, I will start timing for 30 minutes. My steam canner ran for 30 minutes at the appropriate temperature. I turned off the burner, let it set for 10 minutes. Now we're going to take the lid off and see what it looks like. Now you want to be really careful when taking the lid off of a steam canner. Let the steam go away from you. It's still very hot in there. And I'm looking at my jars, and I'm checking to see if I see any siphoning, and I don't. So it looks like they did a good job. So I'm just going to let them sit here for a few minutes. Then I'm going to transfer them over to the countertop where I have a towel or a mat laid out so that they can finish cooling. Get you a good close-up of this. Isn't that beautiful? Those cherries are just bright red. Beautiful. Well, that's how you make cherry pie filling. I hope you learned something from this video, and if you did, please give me a thumbs up, like, and share. And if you like what you're seeing, please subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.